Thank you for joining us on today on today's webinar. Just a few notes before we dive in. If you'd like to sign up for a free trial of Prospector, we do have a free 14-day trial going on. I'm going to go ahead and add that link to the chat so you guys can sign up throughout the webinar or before or after the webinar as well. Also, another note that this webinar will be recorded and available for replay on our YouTube, via email, etc. If you have any questions, please feel free to use the Q&A or the chat button. I'll be monitoring those so we can take questions after the presentation, or you can also email me and I'll add my email to the chat shortly. I'm going to go ahead and close the poll. So if you haven't answered, please go ahead and answer. But it seems like we have a large mix of people. So thank you all for joining us. I appreciate that. My name is Jess Scanlon. I have a background in mining geology, and I'm the head of new media at Prospector. Today, I'm joined by Gautam Iyer, our head of corporate development.
I'm on mute. Good to see everyone join us today. As Jess mentioned, my name is Gautam Iyer. I'm the head of corporate development here at Prospector. In terms of my background, I'm a geologist by education, but a lot of my experience has actually been more so in the corporate finance, corporate development world. So, I'm excited to show you guys how I incorporate Prospector in my day-to-day, investing habits. Again, by no means am I a professional investor. This is just to show you how I use Prospector to go about analyzing companies and projects. So nothing I say or nothing we say should be taken as investment advice or recommendations. Again, it's just to build in Prospector into our everyday workflow. That being said, I'm going to start sharing my screen. And Jess, can you confirm whether you can see everything? Okay.
As an everyday mining investor, what are some general things that you evaluate, Gautam?
Well, it really depends on the kind of company that I'm looking at. So there are a lot of factors to consider, right? Including like the stage of the mining project, the metal, the commodity focus, location, management team, directors, lot of environmental factors, your social license to operate, things like that. Personally, I prefer companies that have projects which are at or before the PEA stage. This really allows me to participate in more upside that can be realized. They usually say the higher the risk, the higher the reward. In terms of, today's exercise, why don't we look at evaluating the potential of a project at the PEA stage and then see what we can kind of find out about the company that owns it, as well as what other details we can find out about the project.
That's awesome. So how would you go about finding these details?
Okay, well, before I dive into that, this is what the average user would see when they log into Prospector. We've got multiple tabs here. We've got the projects tab, the companies tab, reports, filings. What you're seeing here is a list of all the projects that have been updated in the last 1 year via a technical report published by the company. You have a spinning globe with the specific locations of all the projects. And so what I would do about, in terms of finding these details is I would first click on the advanced filtering box. And I have my own criteria. I like projects in Latin America, so I would choose this. I like gold. I like silver. And as I mentioned, let's look at projects that are within the PEA stage. As we narrow down the projects, we see there's 18 projects that have been, that meet our criteria. We've got a few projects out in Mexico. We've got some in Brazil, in Peru, Chile. If I zoom into Chile, I actually see a project here out in Argentina. Okay, so I'm actually curious about this project, so I'm going to click on it. It's called the Diablillos Gold Silver Project, and it's owned by a company called ABRA on the TSXV. Okay, so I want to learn more about this project, so I'm just going to click into it.
Okay, so you've narrowed down a couple of projects at the PEA level like you showed, including this project. What's next in your evaluation?
Okay, so I want to know who owns the project, right? I want to know which company, how much, what percentage ownership do they have of the project. I want to know what the project is about, right? A nice short summary would be nice. When was the last time the company published a technical report on this project? Obviously, we narrowed our search to the past 1 year, but when in 2022 did they actually publish the report? I want to see resource reserve numbers. Given that we're looking at a project in the PEA stage, I want to know what's contained within their life of mine plan. I'd also like to see how these projects compare with its peer group, right? So any other project that has the same commodity exposures. Since we're looking at a gold silver project, I want to know how these projects rank in terms of tonnage and grade and contained metal. So what you're looking at here is the project page. So every project within the Prospector platform has its own project page that looks similar to this. So whatever I just mentioned before, all that information is right in front. We got a nice little summary. That's excellent. We've got the project summary. We've got additional detail like your primary metal, the various minerals. Looks like this project also has silver exposure. So that's something that I want to keep an eye on. The mineral resource estimate. So how much has a project really de-risked their mineral resource? We see there's an inferred, indicated, and measured mineral resource, which is great, but this also tells me that the project does not have any reserves, which is actually quite typical of PEA level projects where the resource hasn't been de-risked enough to upgrade the indicated and measured to probable and proven. So should this project progress to the PFS or feasibility stage, we'll likely see reserves at that point. I can see that the latest technical report was published in January of this year. So again, it's relatively up to date. We're not really dealing with dated information here. So as we scroll down, I can see here that this project is owned by a company called Abra Silver Resource Corp. It's owned 100%. And now I have a brief summary of what Abra Resource does. So it engages in the exploration, acquisition, development of mineral resource properties in Argentina. And it seems like there are multiple projects, of which one of them is the Diablos project that we're looking at right now. So I want to have a look as well to see whether these other projects are material or if the Diablos project is the only material project that's owned by this company. Scrolling down further, I can see that there's a technical report here that I can quickly look through if I wanted to, but I want to more so look at the resource and reserve numbers, and I can look at that in a few ways. I can, again, go into the technical report, search for these numbers, or I can click on the resource and reserves button here on the left-hand side, which will take me down to the resource and reserve section. And we have 5 years worth of resource and reserve numbers for all of our projects that have these resources. What I can see here is that this project has about 1 million ounces of gold across the 3 categories. And in terms of its silver exposure, there's about, I would say 90 million ounces of silver. Okay, so this project isn't a massive project, but it's also not insignificant. It's not small. So now if I wanted to have a look at how this project compares with its peer group, what I would do is I would click on these charts, this just chart button here. Scrolling down, I've got 3 different sections. The one on the left signifies the inferred resource. The blue dots would be the peer group. The yellow dot is where this project is compared to its peer group on this chart. So this is a logarithmic chart showing the grade and the tonnage. Top right equals excellent, bottom left equals not so great. So we can see that this project is right there in the middle of its peer group. When it comes to the measured and indicated, which is here in the center, again, it's right there in the middle, skewing a little bit towards the right, indicating that its tonnage is a bit higher than its peer group. Now, the chart on the right-hand side signifies a proven and probable, and as we know, this project does not have proven and probable reserves. Okay, so now I've got that information. I'm also now curious about the economics of the deposit. There are many ways to evaluate this, various different valuation methods. I prefer calculating the NPV, especially for projects that are at least at the PEA stage, because we're taking into consideration, the projected capital costs, recoveries, basically a business plan for the anticipated mining operation, albeit there will be somewhat of a margin of error, right? So to calculate the NPV, I can go back to the technical report scroll through and build out a model in Microsoft Excel. Right, the technical report should have an economic section whereby I can search for the salient data points. I want to note that we also pull out every single data point that's within the technical report that's relevant for you to build out a mine model. And if you want to ask, how do we know whether these data points are accurate? All you do is you click on a data point and it pulls out the exact source. So we don't make any numbers up. It's whatever is disclosed publicly by the company. And so we have an audit trail for every single data point that's here on Prospector. But going back to the valuation, right? At this stage, I just want a basic understanding. I don't want to spend too much time building out a detailed financial model at this stage. So what I can do is I can click on this calculator button that will take me to the net present value calculator. So what I've done is I've already set a base case scenario for me. My base case is $1,800 per ounce for the gold price and $18 per ounce for the silver price. I've also set a 10% discount rate. For precious metals projects, it's typical to see a 5% discount rate. For the purpose of this exercise, the stage of the project, the country risk, et cetera, we're going to keep it at 10%. Again, we don't want to spend too much time. We don't want to calculate the weighted average cost of capital or anything fancy like that at this point in time. I just want to see how sensitive this project's valuation, this project's net present value is to the commodity prices. This really helps me gauge the risk a little bit, especially during times like this when there's quite a bit of uncertainty and volatility. So to do this, I actually like to do it in tandem with Microsoft Excel. So pulling that up, I've actually created a template which helps me, where I can just simply flex all these numbers. So what I've done here is I've actually inputted the base case scenario of 280.4 million, which represents the $1,800 per ounce gold price and $18 per ounce silver price. And I've flexed it by 5% decrease in the commodity price and the 10% decrease in the commodity price, as well as a 5% increase in the commodity price and a 10% increase in the commodity price. So this represents gold prices of 1710, 1620, 1890, and 1980. So for me to find out what the net present value is under these scenarios, all I have to do is change the gold price here. I can just type in 1710 and it takes me to 271.4 million. So I can type that in. And 1620, 262.3 million. I'm increasing it by 5%, change it to 1890, so 289.5%. And 1980 is going to be 298.6%. Okay, so what does this tell me? What do we do with these various scenarios, right? So for example, if the gold price goes down 5 or 10%, how low will the project economics go? Will the proposed mine still be profitable? As an investor, I want to be sure that my investment has a good chance of withstanding at least a little bit of commodity price fluctuation. As we can see here with this analysis, I was able to put together this relatively simple Excel template and do the sensitivity study in a matter of seconds, right? Otherwise, it would have taken me about an hour and a half to build out a proper model and then to do a sensitivity study that way. So what can we tell with this analysis? We can pretty much say that the silver prices, this project is actually more sensitive to the silver price than it is to the gold price. For example, a 10% decrease in the gold price reduces the NPV by 6%, whereas a 10% decrease in the silver price reduces the NPV by 11%. So this is something that I want to keep in mind when I'm looking at companies and at this project specifically. But then it's also important to understand, this at a corporate level, right? Because your average investor is not going to invest in these mines directly, but rather through companies that are publicly traded, right, on the stock market. So how do we get a look at these companies? Well, we can go back to the project page, and all we have to do is we have to click on the project owner, AbraSilver Resource Corp. So as it loads, what we can see is that we have a project, we have a company summary, just like we do have a project summary on the projects page. We have fundamental data here on the right. We've got the stock market price open. We've got today's high, today's low. We've got the 52-week high, 52-week low. We've got market cap information, your 10-day volume, 3-month average volume. We've got the percentage held by institutions, what the float is, what the shares outstanding is. So as we scroll down, we've got a map of the project locations along with the project details. As we saw earlier, this company has actually multiple projects. But from what I can tell here, the other projects outside of the Diablillos projects are at an earlier stage. So we have 2 grassroots projects and 1 project that is currently being drilled or that has recently seen drilling. For the sake of simplicity, again, we're going to assume that the Diablillos gold silver project is the only material project that this company owns, given the others are still at an earlier stage. So scrolling further down, we can see the stock performance and the stock, I guess, any news that may have impacted the stock prices. Scrolling further down, we see a roll-up of the resources and reserves. So if this project had if this company had multiple projects with resources, that would be rolled up into a corporate level resource. But given that this company only has 1 project with a declared resource, we only see the Diablillos gold silver project's resource. Again, you can click through to see the exact source for the project's resource and reserve numbers. And scrolling further down, we have a summary of the board members and executives of the company. Now, this is one of the factors that I would also look at when making a decision. I want to see what the track record has been for the management team or the directors and where they're coming from, what their success stories have been in the past. So all I have to do is I have to click, select a name, click on View More, and I can see a quick summary of this individual, see what his roles have been in the past, and do a deeper dive that way. So how can I evaluate the upside of the company? I know we've evaluated the project and the project valuation, but going back to my Excel sheet, I'm going to use the Diablillos project to build up majority of the company's value. So I've created another tab here where I've already pulled out the shares information from the top of from the company fundamentals section. I've pulled out the current share price. I've selected the base case scenario of 280.4 million for the Diablillos project. I've put in the cash, debt, and working capital numbers. Now, just for information purposes, Prospector, we have all of this information available to those that want specific data pulls. So we actually have your balance sheet items, your income statement items in our database. So for those that are interested, we can definitely pull specific data points out. And so using all of this, summing them up, I can actually come up with a base case net asset value of 290.93 million. And if I divide that by the shares outstanding, which is 495.7, it's quite a bit, I can come up with a $59 per share potential upside. And that equals to a 57% potential upside, given that the current share price is at 38 cents. So this is kind of the workflow that I would use if I'm evaluating a company, if I'm evaluating a project. And I was able to do this in a matter of, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, as opposed to spending an hour, a couple hours to evaluate whether or not I want to make some sort of investment decision. And again, I'm just an average investor. If I wanted to, I would build out a very detailed financial model in Excel. But for this purpose, it's not really necessary.
Awesome. Thank you, Gautam, for showing us that and for all of those insights. I'm going to take a quick pause and let people ask questions if they want to. I know I have a few, so while we're waiting for people to ask questions, I'll go ahead and ask those. If you do have a question, please feel free to use the chat box or the Q&A box. So the first question I have is, do you have to be a mining expert to use Prospector, Gautam?
You don't. You don't really, because at the end of the day, we try to simplify everything, right? From the user experience to how we access the data and how the data is presented. You don't have to be a mining expert. And in fact, that's one of the mandates that we have here at Prospector, is to get more people involved in investing in the mining industry.
That's great. So you have a company and a project that you're interested in, as well as some NPVs. Is there a way to like save those to keep an eye on or to access easier later?
Absolutely. So, for example, if I'm interested in doing a deeper dive on Abra Silver Resource Corp, all I can do is, I can click on Add Notes. I can say interesting project in LATAM. I can add tags, and I can save this note, and I can follow this company. I can create a new list. Argentina. I can create this list, add the company to the list, and there we have it. I can access this using my Prospector account at a later time if I really wanted to. I can do the same thing with projects. I can go into, I can do that with the NPV. I can save the results, access it later. But also with the projects, I can go ahead, add it to a list, and access it later. Follow the project. Create. Add it to the list.
And all of these can be accessed from the mobile app as well. Is that correct?
Absolutely. So we do have a mobile app that you can take on the go, which synchronizes with the web app that you use on your computer, on your laptop, wherever it may be. So the mobile app is actually very useful when you're at conferences, for example, and you want to have a quick peek at a company before you visit their booth or before you talk to anyone from the management team.
That's great. I also see that you're using Microsoft Excel along with Prospector. Are you able to export the data directly from Prospector to Excel?
Yes. I'm glad you brought that up. I'll give you an example. Like our resource and reserve data, not only do we have the charts button, we actually have a print to PDF as well as an export to CSV button. So if I wanted to, I can export this to CSV. It'll open directly in my Microsoft Excel or any other database software you have. So as you can see here, I've exported all of that to Microsoft Excel.
All right, just one more question before we get to the audience questions here. What new features might be coming up on Prospector? What can we look forward to?
Okay, so we're actually working on a net asset value calculator. So instead of doing it in Microsoft Excel, we can actually do it within Prospector itself. So that's something to look out for. We're also creating a report builder. That's something to look out for. The report builder will be useful when you're dealing with multiple companies. You want to compare multiple companies against one another, build out these reports, print it, export it to Microsoft Excel. It's really to showcase the data that we have in a simple way where you can use it for your everyday purposes. The thing that I would keep an eye out for would be drill results, which hopefully will be coming out next year.
All right, that's exciting. A lot to look forward to. I have one question here. Is there information on small scale mines or projects, especially in South Asian countries?
Okay, so that's a very good question, and that can actually lead me to explain where we get our data from. So within Prospector, we have every single company, every single project that is listed on a publicly traded stock exchange. So right now our database consists of the ASX, TSX, TSXV, and any project worldwide. We don't exclude any regions, any countries. It's wherever these projects are, we will capture them. So as long as they are on a publicly traded company. And so right now, as I mentioned, we have TSX, TSXV, ASX. We're looking to, by the end of the year, we should have New York, we should have London, Johannesburg next year. So in terms of these small scale mines and mines in Asia, we would most likely have those in our database unless they're owned by private companies. And if they are owned by private companies and they joint venture with a public company, we will likely capture that as well because it's disclosure requirements from the public company's end. And so we'd be able to have information on those assets.
So as we're wrapping up, thank you again for everyone for joining us. I hope you found this webinar very helpful. Just as a reminder, we have the Prospector Cobalt report up on our website, and I can also drop that link in the chat here. It's a free digital download report for cobalt resources worldwide. So cobalt's a big mineral for the world electrification. So I definitely recommend checking that out. It's very insightful. The data team did an amazing job on it. And if you have any further questions, again, you can start your free trial. I dropped that link in the chat earlier, but if you'd also like it, you can email me and I can help set you up with that. My email, as well as the general email, is listed here. We do also have a mobile app, as Gautam mentioned. It's super great to take on the go, out in the field, to conferences, etc. You can also find us on pretty much every platform on social media, so feel free to give us a follow, say hello, and keep up with everything that's coming out because it sounds like we have a ton. So again, if there's any further questions, please feel free to drop those in. Does Prospector provide geological information? Can it be used by researchers?
Yes. The answer is yes. We do have geological information contained within every single technical report that's connected with a project.
Awesome. So yes. Gautam, does Prospector provide cash positions? Gosh, that was so hard for me to say.
So yes, we do have all the balance sheet information. We can provide that if requested by our clients. We're hoping to have that as part of another product coming next year.
So it is available as a custom data query, correct?
Exactly.
Awesome. Then we have another question. Can you search the main database for projects of a certain grade or tonnage?
Yes, you can. That's a very good question. So when you actually, and I'm going to share my screen again.
Yep, go for it.
So that's a very good question. In our advanced project search, we can actually, depending on the resource estimate level, we can filter out the various grades, the various tonnages that fit our criteria. So if you're looking for projects that have, a specific grade, we can definitely do that here. The
Awesome.
answer is yes. And to add to that, we can also do, again, custom data pulls. So if there are other criteria that individuals or folks that are looking for, we can do a custom data pull from the back end.
Perfect. Gautam, can you list again where we get the data from, the public companies that we're listing?
Yes. So TSX, TSXV, ASX. We're trying to build out our database to include New York, Joburg, London. And so the answer to that question, yes, we will have every, CSE as well. The answer, yes, so we will have every publicly traded mining company in our database as well as projects.
Awesome. Is data just taken from annual reports or periodic reporting?
Okay, so data is taken from quarterly reports, annual reports, 43101 technical reports, news releases.
So if you guys have any questions, need help starting your free trial, etc., please don't hesitate to reach out. We are available to help you. So with that, I think everybody, we are good to go. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and thank you again for joining us.